So we'll just do one for each position, one each for each position, and we'll dive right in with quarterbacks to start. Your pick is Teddy Bridgewater, which I absolutely love. Give me the case for him, and maybe I can help paint it on, because I'm also 10 spots higher right now than the ECR on him. I absolutely love it. So what's your case for Teddy Bridgewater?
Well, one is just where he's going. And like you mentioned, I'm mentioning 3 guys in the article and then also 3 deep shots. And Teddy is probably the least exciting name. I think I even said that in the article when I wrote about him, that he's probably the least exciting name on that list. And he's going right now as like the quarterback 26, I believe, in ADP. So undrafted in, single quarterback leagues. And yet the situation that he's going to is still pretty good. And if you look back last year, you got those 5 starts for the Saints. And man, you couldn't end up in a better situation than he was with the Saints, right? Great offensive line, great skill position players, phenomenal coaching as well. So that put him in a position to succeed. And I don't know that people realize that he did succeed. He was the quarterback 12 in fantasy during those 5 games. A lot of it was because he had that one really big game against the Bucs. He had over 300 yards. And he had 4 touchdowns in that game. But that shows you that he can do that. He can put up big numbers. Now he's going to Carolina. He's the unquestioned starter there at the beginning of the season, right? Cam Newton is gone at this point. And they have weapons that really fit his style. Now, I think he's a little bit better throwing deep than people may realize. I think people kind of get on him for that. But he is a short to intermediate range guy. And last year they had Kyle Allen, who is a backup through and through. And Teddy's going to come in and upgrade on everything Kyle Allen did, while also kind of playing a similar style. He's going to want to throw those short to intermediate routes. And you have the perfect group for that. You have Christian McCaffrey. You have DJ Moore, who, man, I love DJ Moore this year. I could spend a whole podcast talking about him. You have Curtis Samuel, who recently the team has talked up that, they want to get him involved more. Those guys can catch these short passes and take them to the house. And then you also add Robbie Anderson to stretch the field. You have Ian Thomas, young, promising tight end there as well. So those are some pretty nice weapons. And then a new coaching staff coming in that's offensive-minded. Matt Rule, bringing in Joe Brady, who Bridgewater has some history with, going back to their time together on the Saints. And don't underestimate how important that is in an offseason like this, where you don't have all the time with the coaches, right? So Bridgewater's going to have a little bit of a leg up, whereas some guys who are taking over a new offense, some of these quarterbacks, might be a little bit tougher. They're going to be behind the 8 ball just a little bit there. So I think it's setting up very well for him. And then the other thing is the Panthers completely rebuilt their defense this year. And that defense, it's going to be bad. There's going to be a lot of growing pains there. And what I think, they were very quietly second in the league in pass attempts last year. It was 633.
Oh, wow.
Guess what? They're going to be up in that range again. There's no way that they can't be. They're in the NFC South. All the offenses in that division are great now, right? You're going to have some shootouts. So Teddy's going to have to throw a lot. The volume's going to help him. And it's going to put him back in a position where I think he could be that fringe. It's not going to be an elite option where he could give you top 5 numbers, but he could be a fringe low-end quarterback 1 in fantasy.
Every single point you made, all the points that I would have listed out, the shootout styles that are coming. But my favorite one, and I think the biggest one, is that Joe Brady move there at offensive coordinator. LSU, it's college, so is it going to automatically translate? Of course not. It's going to be a different, higher level of competition, but they go from scoring 69th most points in the NCAA and 65th in passing to then going definite first with 586.5 yards per game and
just a historic season.
Ridiculous. And obviously Burrow was a huge part of that, the number 1 overall pick, but the year before that, he threw 2,777 more yards and 44 more TDs. You got to think Joe Brady was part of that. Part of me just thinks he's going to be that next kind of Sean McVay innovator that uses. He comes from the Saints, as you said. He already has experience. In fact, they said that while he was with the Saints, his job was to catch Teddy Bridgewater up when they traded for him, which is just, they have that much more familiarity. Obviously goes out and gets his guy. So both of those things are huge. I love it. It's all about getting speed and space. I think Curtis Samuel Daniel finally gets utilized the right way too, and he has a huge bounce back in addition to my DJ Moore love. I totally love him as well. So with these yak monsters around him, just because he doesn't love to throw deep, I agree with you too, underrated deep ball, but does he really even have to? When he has these type of yak monsters around him, it's just going to be get it out, let these guys do their thing. I think it's going to be a beautiful offense that goes from, to 20th most points last year. I totally could see them leaping into the top 10 because they're going to have to. Like, if they're going to have any type of competitive drive, they're going to have to. So I absolutely love that pick. My guy I wrote down is Drew Lock. I think he could take the next step, and it's not necessarily that I love Drew Lock. I just love the weapons cabinet at this point. When we saw Cortland Sutton break out, you add Jerry Jeudy to that, which, I mean, he might be the best rookie receiver in this class. That was pretty loaded. Noah Fant had some real breakout appeal last year. We saw some huge flashes, huge athleticism. Melvin Gordon gets added, a very solid pass protector, pass catcher. And then you bring in Pat Shurmur as well, who loves to sling it deep, loves to throw it in general. He's kind of molded under Andy Reid. He's only been under the 11th most pass attempts, 12th most pass attempts just twice in 10 years of his career. And we saw with Daniel Jones, the 8th most deep pass attempts last year as a rookie. So he wasn't afraid to let his guys go out and sling. He's got the weapons to do it. I'm a little nervous, Vic Fangio, more of a defensive-minded guy. Is that going to try to, slow the pace down, grind it out with our new running game? Could be the case, but ultimately just so many weapons around him in a division where I think it's going to be, not quite the Saints versus the Panthers as we were just alluding to, but I do think there's some high ups. Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers could put together a solid offense. Even the Raiders, Carr's not necessarily a gunslinger, but they got talent there. So I'm very intrigued by that division. I think there could be some shootouts. Do you buy into Drew Lock at all, or am I a little crazy here to be high on him?
No, I do, and I think it's interesting. Something that we have to pay attention to is when a team says one thing, but when they do something else, trust the actions over the words, right? And you would think, based on Vic Fangio, based on the way they were last year, that they do want to run the ball. And that does have me a little bit worried about the volume for Drew Lock, because I kind of think the Broncos are going to be sneaky good, and I kind of think they're going to win more games than people expect, and that means they are going to be able to run the ball a little bit more. But they've gone out and surrounded Lock with all these weapons, right? And if they need to throw, if they end up in some high-scoring games with the Chiefs and stuff, I'm right there with you that we don't know that he's going to be able to get it done, but everything is put in place for him to get it done. But I have shied away from him just a little bit, and it is just a volume thing, that I'm not convinced that he's going to have elite volume for a whole season because of Vic Fangio, because of signing Melvin Gordon and having Gordon and Lindsey. And, the offensive line under Mike Munchak, they're going to keep getting better as well. Yeah. So that's going to help the running game too. It's also going to help Drew Lock have some time to get things done back there. So we might be a year early, let's say, on Drew Lock. I think we could be looking at him next year, maybe once all those young receivers are just, have a little more experience as well. Maybe that's when he finally takes that step.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did want to point him out, but ultimately Teddy Bridgewater's cheaper, and I like Teddy more, so I don't really end up with Drew Lock all that often. It's almost always Teddy Bridgewater, Teddy Bridgewater, Ryan Tannehill, or something of that nature. Another just year where you're kind of waiting on QB for the most part. What is up, you Fantasy Wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.